Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Chris Colbert of DCP Entertainment. Chris, it's awesome to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure being here.
No problem. Super excited to have you on. And before we jumped in, I wanted to read a little bit more about Chris so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. And Chris is the CEO and founder of DCP Entertainment, a media platform for underrepresented voices, including people of color, women, the LGBTQ community, and other overlooked communities. He began his career in audio production more than a decade ago as an intern and consultant for Sirius Satellite Radio, now SiriusXM Radio, where he helped create Jamie Foxx's comedy and music channels, the Foxxhole. Having worked with names like Jamie Foxx, Touré, Joy and Reid, Zak Levitt, and Andrew Jenks, Joe Madison, Essence, People, Crooked Media, Sports Illustrated, and the United Negro College Fund, Chris specializes in media partnerships and content development. Chris, you're doing so many phenomenal things. I'm super excited to have you on the show. Are you ready to speak to the I Am CEO community?
I'm ready to go.
Let's do it. So to kick everything off, I wanted to rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started. Could you take us through your CEO story? We'll let you get started with your business.
Yeah. So as you had mentioned, I worked at Sirius Satellite Radio, now known as SiriusXM Radio. And I actually left there. I was there for 11 years, went to a podcast company for a year where I was the VP of their programming division, heading up audio documentaries. And between those two companies, and just as I looked at the greater media landscape, I realized that there were a lack of opportunities being given, particularly to Black people. And as I expanded that, I saw people of color, I saw women, people in the LGBTQ plus community, people with disability, just these pockets of individuals that actually are no longer minorities if you really look at it. And the lack of not only opportunities to be able to be hosts, but also the representation for those audiences, to be able to find people who look like them, people who have similar experiences as them. And so looking at that, and again, not just at the companies that I was at, I realized that just going between these different media companies to try to champion that kind of content, it can work, but I can do a much better job doing that out on my own with the relationships that I've cultivated at both of those places. And so I made the decision that instead of trying to work for all these other companies and help them do it, why don't I take that myself and help build something that I can truly feel passionate about, feel proud about, and can do it the way that I want to do it, again, in representing those communities and doing so in a responsible way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely appreciate you doing it. Kind of, the phrase I always kind of go back to a lot of times is creating a way, sometimes out of no way, so to speak, where you don't see that opportunity, you don't see the voices are being kind of shown that opportunity as best as they could. So rather than saying, oh, somebody else should do it, you take on the entrepreneurial mantle and you decide, hey, let's build something, let me do it myself, and then start to leverage that experience and the partnerships, as you mentioned as well.
Absolutely. And I'm very fortunate because of my experience at Sirius. I was connected with some of those names that you mentioned, like the Jamie Foxxes, like a Joe Madison, like the United Negro College Fund. Like I got the opportunity to expand my network when I was working for somebody else. And then when I left Sirius, I had these networks reaching out to me to say, hey, I heard you left Sirius. Now we can really work together. And so that actually gave me that additional push to say, all right, I actually have the resources to put this together, not only just from the host perspective, but the same thing on the producer side. I met so many talented individuals behind the camera, behind the microphone that, we were able to bring to our company. And there's still more out there that I'd love to be able to champion as well. But we have now people that can create the content, can host the content. And, they were looking for opportunities in a company like mine. And so that gave that additional push to say, you have everything you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely a kind of that great reminder of sometimes when you take that chance or go down the path that you may not necessarily know, you get that reassurance that, hey, this is because so many people are also cheering you on as far as doing it. So I absolutely love that. So I wanted to drill down a little bit deeper, hear a little bit more on what we're cheering on. Could you take us through DCP Entertainment, exactly what you're doing and how you support the clients you work with?
Sure. Yeah, we focus, and a lot of our content right now is very Black focused or programs that are hosted by Black people. Primarily because running urban talk and comedy for SiriusXM Radio, which is the PC way of saying I ran Black and Latino focused programming in the talk space. Because of that network, we do a lot of content that is Black driven. So we have shows like Touré show that's all about Black excellence. We're talking to people like Spike Lee, Diddy, Tiffany Haddish, Neil deGrasse Tyson, people in all these different areas to show that we're not a monolith as Black people, but to show the ability for us to, make it in any kind of career field, any kind of endeavor. So we have a show like that, but we also have shows like Democracy-ish, where We have Danielle Moody, who's a regular on MSNBC, paired also with Touré, where they talk about politics from the Black, very progressive perspective. But then you have civil rights activists like Reverend Mark Thompson, who used to also be a host at SiriusXM, talking about social issues and, especially amongst this time that we're currently seeing with uprisings around the country, what do we need to be doing? What do we need to be demanding? Really from an educational side and understanding our history and how we got here and how we are continuing to try to make changes. But then even beyond just that, that Black focused space, we also have shows like Pick Last and Gym Class that are all about, representing the disabled community and not just saying, hey, look at me, I'm disabled, woe is me. It's, I just happen to be disabled and I'm a great host and I'm going to talk to people about overcoming adversity. I think the representation in that kind of show is great. And that's a show where we do as a company, podcast and video content. That's a show that has a very video forward kind of program because, now you can see these individuals who may have a prosthetic or may have some other kind of ailment that you can't necessarily hear or see, if you're listening to it on a podcast, but in video, you can feel that representation a lot more. And then we have shows like Inner Space that are about mental health, talking to different celebrities or people in business or everyday individuals about how prevalent mental health issues are within our lives, but also how should we be maintaining our mental and emotional well-being on a regular basis. So our business model in terms of how we do these shows is that we partner with influencers, people who are out there doing the work, or we partner with brands that are doing the work to help them to reach the communities that they're trying to reach, and doing so with letting them understand how to cater their message on the podcast audio only platform, and then also how to do so in the video platform if we think that that's a mechanism to reach people. So, basically what we do is we allow allow brands to truly speak to these audiences that they want to reach without this corporate filter. We're a profit business. We want to do advertising and things like that, but we're never going to put advertising on shows that's going to then hinder that show from being able to say what they want to say and do what they want to do. We're not catering our message for the advertisers. We're catering our message for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. You're doing it for the people. And I think so many times we forget that, and businesses sometimes forget that when you actually create something, you're creating it for the people. And when sometimes the advertiser check comes in, it changes the entire direction of the show. So I love that. Obviously you're creating, and it sounds like in a lot of different ways, a step away from that monolithic experience that you mentioned as well too, whether that be Black or disabled or whatever kind of group that might be, where so many times we see or experience one aspect of that through media, and we think that that's all there is. But in reality, you're creating and have a platform by which you're creating a more holistic or varied experience that I think is great for everybody.
Absolutely. And making sure that people who are listening feel like their voices are being reflected in the content. Mm-hmm. I think that's important, especially in this new age of authenticity. We use that word a lot now. And to be truly authentic, you can't have that filter that's thinking in the back of your mind, are we going to lose an advertiser if we say X, Y, and Z? No, the advertisers should be happy to be a part of something that is so outspoken. And so let them cater themselves to you and not the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very strong reminder to kind of be who you are, be true to you are, be authentic to who you are, whether that be your business or your personal life. And then the people that should be around you or the brands that should be around you will be attracted to you, not the other way around, as you said. So definitely appreciate that. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. And this could be for you personally or your business or a combination of both. But what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
I think part of it is the no corporate filter that I mentioned, but I think tied into that is that we very much work in partnership with the people that we work with. I've worked at other media companies where you may say that you're partnering, but at the end of the day, you're making, the major company, the company who's doing the producing of the content is making all the decisions. I really like to work with our hosts to say, can we be doing something better to market you, to book talent for you? It's not just, hey, we're just doing what we're doing and you just have to deal with it. It's no, do you have other resources that can make us better? And part of that is because we're still a young company and so we still are molding ourselves. But I would like to think that as we get bigger, as we become a major company, that we'll continue to have that DNA of we're truly working with the people that we're hosting with, because they know their audience best. They know their potential audience best. And so who better to tell you how to reach those audiences and how to speak their language than the people who already have that audience's attention?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you called it, that DNA, because I think when you're talking about company culture and so many things, you want to have that deeply ingrained in what it is that you're doing. And I think so many times, obviously, we're experiencing a transformational time, to say the least, now. And I think that when you aren't aware of what the people are looking for, what the audience are catered to, and have that kind of ear to the street, so to speak, you're missing out on the pivots, the changes, the ups and downs that might happen. But when you have that kind of back and forth conversation, it sounds like it creates that opportunity to be able to evolve and change, and to, at the end of the day, provide a better product.
Absolutely. And, the people that we're working with are very accomplished themselves. They've been growing these networks. So it actually also provides opportunities. When you engage your partners in a certain way, they then evangelize for you to say, hey, you need to also partner with DCP or whatever your company may be, because look how much they take my voice into consideration. I haven't had this before. You want to come here because this is a different experience where you're going to be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many times we forget, when we think of like clients and customers, there's so many different aspects to that. As you mentioned, the partners that you're partnering with, they want to be heard too, and they want to have that two-way conversation, as well as the people that are listening and engaging, as well as the host. If you're having that listening ear amongst all those different aspects, it creates a really phenomenal win-win-win-win-win opportunity for everybody.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Lately, it's been the virtual assistant. I'm not sure if this has been brought up a few times on your show, but the virtual assistant has been really helpful, especially for more of the minute tasks that aren't very difficult, but just take time. So, I think any business, regardless of what field you're in, you're looking at analytics on a regular basis. And that those analytics for us come from so many different sources. They come from YouTube, they come from these podcast hosting platforms, they come from our website, and Google. So we have our virtual assistant go through and aggregate all that information, put it into a format that's easily digestible for me, for our team, for our host, our partners. So that's something that's been a great hack for me, that before I was spending, 4+ hours a week just trying to aggregate all that information together, and put it into the kind of formats that are easily readable for everybody. And now, I just pay someone, an additional, $20 something a week to handle that for me. And so for me, I think that's been the biggest hack business-wise at the moment.
Yeah, that's extremely huge. And I think that there's even a saying that, if you do something, you're doing it more than one time, then that means you need to bring on somebody potentially to do that, so that you can focus on your zone of genius. And I think having, I hear hacks within that hack, because I think when you start to look at those analytics, and you understand like what's actually resonating, what's having an impact, you're able to look from that standpoint. Then not only does it help you to save your time, but you know exactly where to put that extra time that you earned into, so that you can again create a more valuable and impactful show.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think just having someone else handle that, I think you still need to be the one to in the beginning, to be the one at least start that process. Mm-hmm. One, so you understand how much time you should be requesting of a virtual assistant to do it, but also so you can set the process and have it set up in a way that is going to be good for you, as opposed to just having someone do it right off the bat. And now you're just trying, you're spending weeks or a month trying to fine tune that system. Fine tune it yourself first, then you can delegate it.
Yeah, absolutely. You make sure you become an expert at it, and then you're able to kind of teach the person how to do it, and they are able to do it to that level. So love that. And so now I want to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget. And this could be a word of wisdom or piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Yeah, and I think you kind of touched on it a little while ago, but I think the biggest is being flexible. Things are not always going to go according to plan. You should have your plan A, your plan B, your plan C. And sometimes all those plans get blown up at the same time. So understand that you're sometimes going to have to pivot, and, try not to get just so down in that moment. Just try to always be proactive in your thinking in terms of, okay, what is next? Obviously, you want to figure out how to avoid having the same situation happen again, but your immediate thought needs to be, how do I move on to the next thing? How do I either improve on what just happened? And then you can go back and try to put those fail safes in place. But just always be ready that your plans could blow up at any given moment, regardless of, what aspect of your business that you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I almost feel like, life and even business are a lot about expectations. And if you have the expectation that, hey, you're going to have to pivot and change, because I think that's just the DNA of business and what you have to experience. But if you understand that when it happens, you're not as caught off guard and you're able to say, okay, this happened. Now what do I do? And you're able to make those pivots and those changes a lot quicker than kind of dwell on the things that blow up. And it kind of reminded me, there's this kind of symbol of power. Like I think so many times we think that it's a rock, but I read a while ago that it's actually water, because water is permeable. It can go through rocks, it can go around, it can go all in different shapes or fashions, and it can even move rocks if it has enough. So if we start to think about ourselves and the mentality related to water, I think that will serve us definitely better now and in the long term.
I like that. That's a great analogy. Yeah? We're made up, 80% of water or
There
something
you
like
go.
that. So it's even more apt as an analogy. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Chris, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Yeah, and I've heard some of the ones from your past guests, and I think they're definitely spot on. I think leadership comes up a lot, and I'll fine tune that definition a little bit more to say I think that being a CEO is proactive leadership. I know I just used that word a little while ago as well, but I very much believe in it. I don't think you should be reactionary. If you're a CEO, you should be looking big picture. Every decision you make, even in those moments where there's an emergency and you have to get a quick fix, you should be thinking about, okay, what's the short-term ramifications of this, but also what are the long-term ramifications of dealing with this? So, the same thing goes with any contract you're signing. You're looking at the fine print and anticipating things going wrong, or anticipating the person you're going into business with to try to finagle things to work better in their favor. Even if you trust them, you need to be thinking proactively of, okay, what if this happens? What recourse do I have? What safety net do I need to put in place? And so, yeah, being a proactive thinker and thinking bird's eye view, which also then again means that you should be delegating certain tasks so you have the ability, have the time to think from that bird's eye view. I think that's really important, and also is something that will influence the culture of your business. When you're thinking proactively and thinking 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, that then permeates with the rest of your team. And so they are then doing the same thing. And you just become better as a company when you're thinking, okay, are things going, as opposed to reacting to where are things now and trying to catch up to everybody. Because by the time you catch up, they've already moved on. So you're better to try to lead than to try to follow and be reactionary.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that proactivity word. And I think that it resonates so much. And I appreciate you kind of even, it sounded to me like touching on that hack as well, too, that we talked about in a little bit earlier, where I think we can often get bogged down in the nuances of the business. But if we aren't able to delegate, we aren't able to pull ourselves out so that we can be that proactive thinker, that be that proactive leader, not just for ourselves, but for the people within our organizations, it's to the detriment of what we're doing, but also to the people that are around us as well. And I think that not only, obviously, that's a great definition, but I think even the tangible aspect of that, of making sure how we're able to do that better is so powerful.
Yeah. And it's something where honestly, I'm still getting better at delegating.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us have gotten to where we are because of our own effort, because of our own knowledge, because of what we can do. And it can be very tough for us to let go sometimes. So it's a work in progress. I think I'm doing better every day. But you definitely see the benefits as a whole organization when you're able to step back like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a work in progress for all of us. And the good thing is that it's a work in progress, not the opposite way. So that's always where we're trying to shoot for, is to get a little bit better than we were last week, last month, an hour ago, so to speak. So truly appreciate that. I appreciate that definition, Chris, and I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you, find out about all the awesome things you and your team are working on.
Yeah, so I think the only other thing I would add, because I think this has been a great conversation, the only other thing I would add is that I think there's a lot of new entrepreneurs that are listening to this show. And I think the biggest thing is, don't get discouraged in the day-to-day things that, may feel like failures. I like to tell people that I don't believe I've ever failed in anything, because, those are moments to be able to then pivot and to try to improve on something. It's only in failure when you really give up. And so I don't see failures, I see opportunities. And so I'd like to kind of impart that on fellow entrepreneurs, people who are looking to aspire to start a business, that you're going to go through tough times, but, always remind yourself that, you've probably been through some traumatic experiences in your life and you're still here. And so to always draw back and kind of like we were just talking about before, look at that big picture view of your own life to say, this is just a quick moment within the greater landscape of what I'm trying to accomplish. And, don't get too bogged down on some of the things that don't necessarily go the way that you want them to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as for us, for DCP, for myself, if you want to kind of follow what we're doing, our company, DCP Entertainment, is on all social media platforms at DCP Official. And you can go to dcpofficial.com to check out our website, check out all of our shows. I'm not as interesting on social media. I just tend to, post pictures of throwback moments in radio and, some of my baby pictures and stuff. But if you are so inclined, I'm on Instagram, Chris Colbert Report. But yeah, I'd push you to DCP Official. They're a lot more fun to follow.
All right, that definitely sounds good. We will have those links and information in the show notes just so that everybody can follow up with you as well too. But I definitely appreciate that reminder again, kind of speaking to that mentality that we need to have in business. And I think once we understand, sometimes to some degree, it's kind of like a video game. If we understand that we didn't fail, we get to start again, and we get to start again with that data or that information on how to be better. It starts to change our approach and our mentality towards those roadblocks or those things that pop up, and we start to become stronger as a result of going through those experiences, not worse, because we completely shut off the game, so to speak. So I appreciate that reminder, appreciate your time even more, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you. You as well, and thank you for what you're doing with this show. It's been a great time talking to you.